ADR. Promoting dialogue.
It's midday in Dakar, 1 p.m. in Abuja, Nigeria. Good afternoon and welcome to Newslink in West Africa, the Macross Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and online at wadr.org. First, our top stories. Reactions trailed the dissolution of over 40 political parties in Guinea.
What is happening in Guinea is very dangerous, and we are facing the biggest threats against democracy, the rule of law in West Africa.
Ghana's President Mahama orders immediate ban on foreign retreats and training for state-owned enterprise boards to cut public waste. Tensions mount within Senegal's ruling alliance as President Diomaye Faye reaffirms his coalition ties amid rift with Prime Minister Sonko.
For now, things are working despite their political differences. There are lingering complaints that the president doesn't always apply the proposals put forward.
WDR and NED certify several journalists from the Central Sahel region in investigative and data journalism. Please stay with us for details of these stories and more.
On the news, this is Sankulu Jubril Janko.
Many thanks for joining us. Newslink begins in Guinea, where the transitional government has taken the drastic step of dissolving more than 40 political parties. This decision effectively affects the country's major opposition formations. Impacted groups, including the UFDG and UFR, have condemned the move as an attempt to establish a one-party state and are calling on supporters to resist. Augustine Colley has the details in the following report.
From now on, the UFDG, UFR, the RPG Rainbow and about 20 other political parties have been removed from Guinea's political landscape. Authorities accuse the parties of breaching and violating provisions of the country's charter governing political parties. The decision has been strongly rejected by the leader of the dissolved UFDG, Selou Dalen Jallow, who described the measure as unacceptable.
Political rights and fundamental freedoms, after being trampled upon, have now been purely and simply suppressed. Consequently, there is no alternative left but to engage in a courageous and frontal resistance to liberate our country. This struggle is now imposed upon us as both a moral duty and a historical necessity. We now know that it is neither through dialogue nor the democratic process that we will achieve political change and a true return to constitutional order.
Within the RPG Rainbow, the party funded by former President Alpha Condé, officials say the move did not come as a surprise. According to Elhaj Sore Sanon, the party's regional coordinator in Upper Guinea, the authorities had long signaled their intention to weaken established political forces.
I would say that the RPG is not surprised by this dissolution because, as the saying goes, he who wants to kill his dog accuses it of having rabies. The RPG is a Republican and law-abiding party. When an ideology is deeply rooted, it is difficult to remove. They can dissolve our party by force, but they cannot remove from our minds the ideology that Mr. Alpha Condé instilled in us. So, they are fooling themselves and they are mistaken.
Several of the dissolved political parties have already announced plans to challenge the decision before the Supreme Court, describing the dissolution as what they call an abuse of authority.
A report from our Conakry correspondent Cherno Alpha Ibrahim Abalde, voiced by Augustine Colley. In Senegal, President Bassirou Diomaye Faye has reaffirmed his commitment to the Diomaye President coalition, even as his own party Pastef distances itself from the alliance. This development unfolds amidst the growing reports of tension between the President and Prime Minister Ousmane Sonko. Gaston Berger University Professor Moussa Diaw analyzes the potential impact of the split.
For now, things are working despite their political differences. Each is trying to accommodate the other, even if there are thinly veiled criticisms. There are lingering complaints that the president doesn't always apply the proposals or decisions put forward. Meanwhile, President Diomaye Faye remains mindful of his role as head of state. Institutionally, he holds the executive power and notes that Ousmane Sonko does not always seem to align with or respect his directives. Despite this, they maintain a unified public front. However, it's uncertain how long this will last before a potential breaking point. Both men are likely aware of the danger a rift could pose to political stability and the functioning of the state. A public tug-of-war between them will be detrimental, though Diomaye Faye technically holds the final word. This potential split wouldn't benefit anyone, not Faye, not Sonko, and certainly not the Senegalese people. The electorate voted for a program led by a duo presented as inseparable, a partnership meant to foster the well-being of the nation and respond to the people's aspirations. Moving forward, the priority is to ensure this duo can endure to avoid a political crisis that could weaken Senegal and plunge the country into uncertainty.
That was Professor Musa Jao from Gaston Berger University. Well, in more presidential news, Ghana's President John Dramani Mahama has directed the boards of state-owned enterprises and public institutions to immediately cease all international travel for retreats and study tours. The directive, which aims to protect the public finances, comes in response to the rising cost of such foreign trips to the state. WDR's Accra correspondent Nadi Tete has the details.
According to the presidency, the decision follows concerns over the rising frequency and cost of overseas trips undertaken by some boards for training programs, conferences, retreats and study tours. Officials say travels, often involving multiple members and extended itineraries, have led to significant spending on airfares, accommodation, per diems and other logistics, placing avoidable pressure on the public purse. Under the directive, the boards of SOEs and public institutions are barred from undertaking international travel funded directly or indirectly with public resources for such activities. However, where an international engagement is deemed absolutely necessary and cannot reasonably be undertaken locally or virtually, a formal request must be submitted through the relevant sector minister to the Chief of Staff for the express approval of the President before any arrangements are made. Such requests must include a clear justification outlining the purpose of the trip, its relevance to the institution's mandate, the number of participants, and the estimated cost. The directive also encourages ministries and their institutions to prioritize local training programs, in-country retreats, virtual platforms, and partnerships with local universities and professional bodies as more cost-effective alternatives. Government says the measure forms part of efforts to strengthen expenditure controls, reduce non-essential public spending, and redirect limited resources to priority programs and social interventions that directly benefit Ghanaians. For WDR, Nadidi Tete, Accra.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
Journalists from across the Central Sahel region have been certified in investigative and data journalism following a 6-day intensive training by West African Democracy Radio and the National Endowment for Democracy, NED. The initiative aimed at building media capacity to combat disinformation and uphold information integrity in conflict zones. Christopher Atiji reports.
Journalists from across West Africa have concluded a 6-day training in Dakar with a renewed commitment to strengthening professional reporting and counter disinformation across the Sahel.
Disinformation is a big issue.
The training focused on key areas including security and governance, reporting in the face of misinformation, investigative and data journalism, human and digital sourcing, as well as engaging radio production and mobile journalism. It was designed to sharpen the investigative skills of participating journalists while reinforcing awareness of democratic values and civic responsibility. At the end of the program, participants were awarded certificates by the management of West Africa Democracy Radio in recognition of the skills gained to strengthen investigative reporting on conflict and security issues. Board Chairman of WADR, Suleiman Anyan, urged the journalists to apply the knowledge acquired to promote democratic governance and maintain high professional standards in the public interest.
Au titre de l'orientation générale
Regarding the general orientation, the training covered the analysis of the impact of the security situation on democracy and strategies to mitigate its effect and promote democratic principles. Regarding investigative journalism, the training covered combating disinformation through fact-based reporting, developing skills in conducting in-depth interviews, and producing analytical reports.
Reportage analytique.
The certified journalist also expressed appreciation to the management of WADR.
I received new information, new skills, and learned how to use new tools for investigations, as well as new tools for data journalism.
I spent 6 days here in Dakar for a high-quality investigative journalism training course. This is a really great opportunity that will strengthen our CV and also strengthen our way of making productions.
And so all of this will be useful to us in our work as journalists, especially in the context of our countries. These are countries, as you know, plagued by insecurity, located in the central Sahel, so we have to be very careful.
The training was organized by West Africa Democracy Radio in partnership with the National Endowment for Democracy as part of efforts to promote credible information and support democratic governance, peace and resilience across the Sahel and West Africa.
Christopher Atichu with that report. Now to the Gambia, where a high court in Banjul has sentenced a Nigerian national to life imprisonment for raping a 7-year-old girl in Compassouth. Our correspondent Sang Donald Mendy reports that while the court highlighted the extreme breach of trust and vulnerability of the victim, the convict was acquitted on a second charge due to insufficient evidence of penetration.
Justice Sidike Jobate found Moses Okwai guilty of 1 count of rape under the Sexual Offences Act 2013. The court documents show that Okwai, who worked at the John Bosco Garden in Kunkujang, Mariama, in the West Coast region, lured 3 children with promises of Easter gifts, isolating them before assaulting one of the victims. During the trial, 8 witnesses testified, including the victims and a registered nurse who documented breathing inconsistent with normal play. The mother of one of the victims said her daughter returned from the garden distressed and running a fever. Okwai denied the allegations, claiming they were fabricated due to his status as a foreigner, and insisted he had only spoken to the children about God and given them gifts. The judge ruled that the prosecution had proven all essential elements for rape, including penetration, criminal intent, and lack of consent. The court also noted that Okwai fled the village following the allegations, which was seen as evidence of guilt. While he was acquitted on a second count involving an 8-year-old, the life sentence reflects the severity of the crime and the breach of communal trust. For Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, I am Sangdana Mendy, reporting from Banjul.
Now, Nigeria joins the global community to mark International Women's Day under the theme Give to Gain, as UN Women calls for urgent action to address violence against women. The call comes amid rising cases of gender-based violence across the Federation. As a result, the organization is demanding stronger legal protections for women worldwide. WDR's Abuja correspondent Yechi Nusase reports.
The observance of International Women's Day this year comes amid renewed calls for greater protection, empowerment, and political inclusion for women across Nigeria. UN Women says while advocacy for gender equality has gained momentum over the years, violence against women and girls remains a major challenge. Speaking at an event to commemorate the day, the UN Women representative in Nigeria, Beatrice Eyong, expressed concern that incidents of femicide, which is the intentional killing of women and girls because of their gender, have risen sharply in recent years.
And I must also say that femicide is also increasing. Number of incidents increased in 2025 by 240%. And it is now recorded that a woman is killed every 49 hours in Nigeria.
She stressed that beyond awareness campaigns, governments and institutions must strengthen enforcement of existing laws and invest in prevention programs aimed at protecting women and girls. The UN official also used the occasion to call for greater representation of women in Nigeria's political space. She urged lawmakers to pass the Special Seats Bill, which seeks to create additional legislative seats for women in the National Assembly and state assemblies as a temporary measure to boost women's participation in governance.
We were hoping that by now it would have been passed and we would have already known that at least Nigeria is actually moving to that position of the giant that Nigeria is. And there is no excuse to say, where are the women? Nigeria has the brightest, competent women with expertise on the continent.
As Nigeria joins the global community in marking International Women's Day, stakeholders say sustained action from legislation to community engagement will be essential to reversing the rise in violence and advancing gender equality. For WADR, Yechini Sasitu in Abuja.
You're listening to Newslink on West Africa, the Cross Radio 94.9 FM, Dakar, Senegal, and online at wadr.org. Here's a reminder of our top stories. Reactions trail the dissolution of over 40 political parties in Guinea. Ghana's President Mahama orders immediate ban on foreign retreats and training for state-owned enterprise boards to curb public waste. Tension mount within Senegal's ruling alliance as President Diomaye Faye reaffirms his coalition ties amid rift with Prime Minister Sonko. WDR and NED certify several journalists from Central Sahel region in investigative and data journalism. Still ahead, we have a press review, guest interview, and sports news. Please stay with us.
Fresh and breaking news all the time. Hear it first as the news breaks, only on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
Elsewhere in Togo, 14 people are dead and scores injured following a horrific motor accident on the mountain road in the municipality of Kozawan. The tragedy that occurred on Sunday, March 8, 2026, has once again brought the country's road safety practices into sharp focus. Usman Omar tells us more.
According to a statement from the Ministry of Security, the collision occurred around noon involving a tricycle and a foreign registered truck. The impact was devastating, claiming 14 lives, including 2 minors, and leaving 58 others with varying degrees of injury. The victims were rushed to the regional health facilities, where many remain under medical care. Preliminary investigations by the security services suggest that a burst pool led to a catastrophic technical failure, causing the vehicles to collide. However, authorities highlighted a more systemic concern. Both the tricycle and the truck were illegally carrying passengers, a frequent goal, dangerous practice on Togolese roads that officials say significantly compounded the casualty figure. In response to the scale of the tragedy, the government immediately activated the OSEC Plan, the National Organization of Civil Security Response, to mobilize emergency relief and provide specialized care for the survivors. The Minister of Security, Calixte Batosi Majolba, has expressed his condolences to the bereaved families while issuing a stern reminder to motorists. He emphasized that strict compliance with the highway code, the use of appropriate passenger vehicles, and an end to overloading are the only ways to avoid such avoidable carnage on the nation's highways.
Usman Omar reporting there.
This is the newspaper review. Stay abreast and find out what the top stories are in your country.
This is the newspaper review.
The newspaper review.
We now rejoin Yechini Sasitu in Abuja for the press review.
Greetings. Let's begin with Guardian. PDP governors preach calm ahead of appeal court verdicts on party leadership. Wike confirms appointment of 1,659 FCTA workers as 224 absentees raise ghost worker suspicion. Unsafe schools undermine education. CSO warns as study reveals 47% pupils affected. And now Vanguard. 2027 polls. Parties scramble to meet Electoral Act deadline. AFCTA. Trade Minister urges stronger support for women-led businesses. And now to this day, IGP Disu outlines new operational strategies for internal security. FARC reconciliation. NNPC consultants failed to agree on 42.3 billion naira on the remittance to Federation. African women celebrate strength. Call for change at Arise's Women of Impact Award. And lastly, from the nation, ECOWAS pushes ahead with common currency plan. Rotary to build 72 billion naira wellness center. Others. In entertainment, International Women's Day. Caroline Njuma condemns stigma against divorced women. Actress apologizes for cooking on the streets. And that's it on Press Review. Back to you in the studio.
Many thanks to Yechini Sasitu for the Press Review.
Politics,
Analysis on major news,
social matters, and all. This is The Guest.
The guest interview focuses on Guinea, where more than 40 political parties have been dissolved by the transitional government. This decision effectively affects the country's major opposition formations. Impacted groups, including UFDG and UFR, have condemned the move as an attempt to establish a one-party state and are calling on supporters to resist. Our guest is Faya Minimono, a recent presidential candidate and opposition leader of the dissolved UFDG party. He speaks about the implications of the party's dissolution.
What is happening in Guinea is unique, is very dangerous, and we are facing the biggest threats against democracy, the rule of law in West Africa. And everybody is looking at it, and everybody is waiting the conflict to be open to start intervening. What is happening here is very dangerous. We don't know what is the exact reason why they dissolve all those political parties. We were in the process of evaluating political parties. All those parties, look at the UFR of the former Prime Minister Sidia Touré. That party has just ended its evaluation. Now, no problem was found. And guess what? 5 months later, the party disappeared. It's very dangerous.
The authorities say these parties or the opposition parties dissolved violated the charter governing political parties. Do you believe this justification is legitimate or politically motivated?
It is politically motivated. Look, because they cannot explain. I am telling you that during that transitional period, we went through 2 evaluations of political parties. Among those 40 parties dissolved, there are at least 25 that went through that process of evaluation, and they didn't find any problem justifying what they have done right now. So it is politically motivated, and they are in the process of building a unique political party, a state party.
What do you mean by this claim that the authorities are building a state party?
Well, we went through it. You know, during the first regime of Guinea, after we got our independence in '58, there were different parties in Guinea. They end up being one party, one unique party, and that party become a state party. We went through a lot of nightmare under that state party. Can you imagine when Doumbouya and his team come to power? What they say? We have to depoliticize administration. Oh, today, the Prime Minister is the first militant of his GMD party. All the government is working to put that party in place. Even the army is involved. They even inviting the union to join that political party. Can you imagine?
Now, several dissolved political parties plan to challenge the decision at the Supreme Court. What chances do they have of reversing this decision through the legal system?
No chance at all. Look, I am one of the rare politicians in Guinea going all the time to court, but I know what I can expect from the court now. The last process I started at the Supreme Court was when I found the contradictions between the electoral law and the Constitution. I took the problem to the Supreme Court. What they have done? Nothing. And let me tell you, it is not a matter of this party and that party. all the political parties are going to disappear. The only difference between what is happening here and what happened in Burkina Faso and so on, they're pretending that they're doing something normal. But no political party can today expect to be in place in 1 year.
Faya Milimono is a recent presidential candidate and opposition leader of the dissolved UFDG party in Guinea. Well, in sports, we begin with athletics. Uganda long-distance star Jacob Kiplimono has reclaimed the men's half-marathon world record after a stunning performance in Lisbon. Kiplimono crossed the finish line in 57 minutes and 20 seconds, shaving 10 seconds of the previous record set by Ethiopia's Yomiv Kejelcha 2 years ago. Running without peacemakers, Kiplimono held this blistering pace before surging ahead in the final straight to seal the historic win, once again etching his name into the record books. And in football, the Confederation of African Football (CAF) has announced the list of African referees and video assistant referees VAR selected for the 2026 FIFA World Cup, set to be hosted by the United States, Mexico and Canada. Among the officials chosen is Mauritania's Dahen Beida, alongside some of the continent's top referees, including Mustafa Gorbal of Algeria, Jean-Jacques Ndala Ngombo of DR Congo, Amin Omar of Egypt, and Pierre Ghislain Acho of Gabon. CAF also confirmed the African VAR officials for the tournament, with Algeria's Lahlou Ben Rahman, Egypt's Mahmoud Ashu, and Eswatini's Leticia Viana making the list. We've come to the end of this edition of Newslink on West African Democracy Radio Broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening. Many thanks to Mustafa Sek and Maudou Ju for the technical assistance. Do interact with us via our social media platforms, X, Instagram and Facebook at WDR English. Coming up next is WDR's health program World Body with Imo Edit. I am Sankule Jibril Janko. Good afternoon.
And many thanks to you for listening to Newslink via Hot 104.3 FM,
Hilltop Radio 104.7 FM,
and Veritas Radio 102.9 in Banjul, the Gambia. We also appreciate our listeners in Liberia via Alternative Youth Radio 98.9 FM, Lofa County,
Radio Kagama 94.5 FM, Niba County, DCN Radio 91.3 FM, Riverside County, Wakat FM Radio, Banga, Liberia, Radio Baf FM 91.3 Sierra Leone in Nigeria, and Love 104.5 FM Abuja.
For you listening via Radio Pad 95.1 Damango, Savannah region, and on Royals FM 104.7 Wenchi, Ghana, we say a big thank you. Remember, West Africa Democracy Radio is all about you, your views, and your opinions.